I'm really concerned about this nihilistic discourse that there's literally nothing that could be done.
And we're going to depart back to Van Nuys.
The damage to be more than $250 billion. This would be costlier than Katrina.
These are the neighborhoods that voted overwhelmingly for Kamala, that voted overwhelmingly for Gavin Newsom, that voted overwhelmingly for Karen Bass. I believe there's 5 active fires right now. And these are ignition-driven fires, meaning that this is all chaparral or scrubland,
yes.
Brush area. So this is different than the Sierra forests.
Right.
So they're ignition-driven and they're obviously wind-driven, but there's nothing unusual. I just interviewed a climate scientist about this, or rather an environmental forest scientist about this. There's nothing unusual about this. I mean, it is somewhat unusual to get you have a dry period and then the Santa Ana winds in January, but it's not like that never happens.
Tucker Carlson and Michael Shellenberger discuss the current situation of 5 active fires in California, emphasizing that these are ignition-driven fires affecting scrub and brush areas. Carlson praises Shellenberger's reporting style, describing him as an exceptional gatherer of facts and an insightful explainer of complex issues. Michael Shellenberger argues that there were enormous failures in anticipating and managing wildfires in Los Angeles, with knowledge of risk on January 1st and 2nd. He suggests that preventive measures were neglected, pointing to broader issues in policy and resource allocation for forest and fire management.
The National Weather Service put out a fire warning on January 2nd, and a local weatherman actually forecasted on January 1st. They said we're headed towards a super dangerous moment. The next day, the National Weather Service Los Angeles held a briefing to underscore that point. The day after that, the mayor flew to Ghana. I mean, it's crazy.
I find it disingenuous and disgusting for the right-wing MAGA monsters, is my name for them, to drill down on Mayor Bass for being in Ghana.
Literally on the 1st or 2nd, the governor should have called out the National Guard. He should have called all of our neighboring states. He should have called Canada and Mexico, asked for all their backup help. They should have started circling C-130s that are, especially retrofitted that can dump the fire retardant or water. They should have had helicopters circling to see where the fires were. It should have been immediate mobilization.
But nothing of that was done.
And because there's so many ignitions, because of really these 2 factors, mostly the electrical wires brushing up against, vegetation and triggering a fire, that's kind of one of the main ones. The other one is homeless people starting fires all over LA. Half of all fires put out by the LA Fire Department are started by homeless people. It's been that way for years.
I'm in California, and people are saying there's guys lighting fires out there, make this worse. They just caught somebody, we're pretty sure was lighting fires, walking around with a blowtorch. They let him go.
So, but that they knew on January 1st, January 2nd, that the fires were coming. Like, it was inevitable that there would be fires. Like, there was like zero doubt among anybody that knows anything about fire in Los Angeles that the fires were coming. The fires were coming. So the governor should have been there. The mayor should have been there. You should just literally, it's all about prevention, in part because by the time the fire trucks are having to weave their way up those little hills of the Pacific Palisades, it's over. I was like, look, they're going to come out and say it was inevitable, and that's just a total lie.
Because of global warming.
Yeah, because of global warming. And I mean, anyway, there's so many places to go here, but just on the most practical sense, they knew the fires were coming and they didn't do anything. The mayor leaves the country. She flies to Ghana after having promised not to leave the country, by the way.
She was in Ghana, so what? Being in Ghana was not going to prevent the fire, and being in California was not going to prevent the fire.
Why is it important the mayor be there? You can say, hey, well, aren't there other people in charge? Because it's an emergency command situation. She has to be able to issue orders and to, waive regulations and make things happen. The governor has to be doing that. They didn't do that. They should have had, by the way, they should get the fire trucks up into the fire areas right away.
Yeah.
They can also start, they can start clearing brush. They can start, but literally they could just be in those neighborhoods, just sitting there for days at a time, waiting for the fires to happen, put them out as soon as they happen. I'm not saying that they would have been able to prevent all the fires from happening, but you remember the big fire in 1993, I think it was Laguna Beach, or maybe it was Malibu as well, but it was like 700 homes. We're at 10,000, structures at this point, homes and buildings gone, 200,000 people evacuated. I mean, it's like, it's madness. It never needed to get to that level.
Here's some clips from the Laguna Beach fire of 1993.
The fires away from their dwellings. All I can see is very bright orange flame and lots of black smoke. People are on their rooftops trying to water down their houses. People are shouting instructions to each other, trying to yell at firemen. And it looks like some of these homes may not be able to.
The Santa Ana wind fame, these black smoke clouds are heading westbound.
We're dealing with a myriad of issues. I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in.
Another huge issue that could have easily been preventable is
the water runs out, right? So that was and then you hear people go, oh, well, there's nothing you can do because like once the homes are burned down, like the water lines, you can see the pictures, the water like will be spilling out, of the homes. And so that lowered the water pressure. That was a total lie. There is something called the Santa Ynez water reservoir, which is the potable water, meaning the drinking water that also goes into the fire hydrant system, because the fire hydrant, the fire hydrant system is the drinking water system. It's the same thing. It's the exact same system. That reservoir was empty, and it was the second largest of the 10 potable water reservoirs that serve LA County. So that is an absolute crime, that Santa Ynez reservoir. Why? Because first of all, it's right next to the Pacific Palisades. And so for people that don't know, Pacific Palisades, of course, is like right near, it's on your way to Malibu. It's like the last big neighborhood before you get to the...
And they're Palisades. They're over the water.
And you look at where the Santa Ynez Reservoir is, it's right next to like a few thousand feet from Pacific Palisades, and it's really high up. And so if you had water coming from that, the firefighters would have had plenty of water. They would have had the water pressure, even if you had lost some homes and had the water out. So, two major failures. The first was the failure to aggressively respond days in advance, even though they had very clear warnings. The second was the reservoir was empty.
I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the delta smelt and reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full. The state reservoirs here in Southern California, that mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us.
So how long has this reservoir been empty for?
Since February of last year.
And then the fires, and then the actual ignitions. You can't completely prevent ignitions, but you can significantly reduce them. One would be to not allow people to camp outside all over Los Angeles County with somewhere around, I think it's 40 to 60,000 homeless people in the whole county. And then the other is the electrical wires that brush up against the vegetation and create fire. With that, you want to clear the vegetation from around the wires. That's obvious. Yeah. And then you can also just stop. This is a not great solution, but you could certainly do it in a pinch if you need to. You just stop the electricity from going into those homes for some period. It's a drag.
Michael Shellenberger argues that the recent fires in Los Angeles are significantly influenced by what he describes as a nihilistic ideology prevalent in California's governance. He contends that progressive policies, which prioritize environmentalist principles and social agendas over practical safety measures, have led to inadequate forest management and urban planning, exacerbating wildfire risks. Shellenberger believes that this ideological approach has resulted in neglecting essential infrastructure and safety protocols, thereby contributing to the severity of the fires.
I think that what you're seeing in real time in these fires in Los Angeles, these destructive fires, is the manifestation of a nihilistic ideology. It's an emergent quality. It happens through a million small steps. But this heavy focus on left-wing ideology, whether it's DEI or ESG or climate apocalypse or just class resentment, manifests itself in like the most spectacular, beautiful neighborhoods just being turned into ashes and cinders. Let's hope that this has been a wake-up call for the people of Los Angeles. It's they are reaping what they sowed, and the people of California are reaping what we sowed. And, that is, it's really quite symbolic. It's like the neighborhoods of the elites in Los Angeles that really got the most affected, that are having to flee. And the firefighters, of course, the men and women on the ground doing the hard work, they're blameless. But the destruction, there's 29 fire departments in Los Angeles, including LA county fire department. You know, there's 88 cities. People don't realize, like, Los Angeles is a city, but then there's a much larger county around it with 88 cities in it. And there's and not all of them have fire departments. In fact, most of them don't, right? So the ones that don't have their own fire departments, they depend on LA County Fire Department. I mean, the priorities of these fire departments, it's not just like a social media meme. I mean, it really has been DEI. Like, it really has been the priority of these fire departments. The first priority of the fire departments should be to put out fires and keep people safe and save lives. But the first priority has been DEI. You know, I hope it's a wake-up call. I don't know if it will be, but it is a completely preventable disaster. Fires are definitely not completely preventable, but that level of destruction absolutely is. And anybody who says that it is not preventable should be as far away from power as possible. Like, anybody who believes that it was inevitable to lose 10,000 homes and buildings in Los Angeles over a week, they should not be they should be very far away from political power. They should not be in charge of any fire department.
Yes. Gavin destroyed dams and then bragged about it.
And for decades, dams along the Klamath River block salmon from migrating, damaging our ecosystems and hurting native communities. By removing the dams, we're helping to restore salmon, steelhead, and lamprey populations, restoring, get this, 400 miles of historic spawning habitat.
It's not caused by climate change. I mean, certainly warmer weathers, all else being equal, makes the wood, drier.
Yes.
But there is no change in precipitation since 1877. They've kept very good records of rainfall, annual rainfall in the Los Angeles basin, and it's unchanged. There have been Santa Ana winds in January many times in the past. There have been, and by the way, like this is a dry year now, but the last 2 years were very heavy rains.
And let's not forget the massive budget cuts.
They cut $17.5 million from the budget, and not only that, but then they had this internal memo that leaked that said that they were looking to cut another $48.8 million, another $49 million from the fire department budget, which was already decimated. Their head has been in the clouds around, DEI, the larger society, ESG, climate, homelessness. On homelessness, we now know, because the state audit came out, $24 billion on homelessness since Gavin took office in 2019. Homelessness in California increased by 40% under Gavin.
What do you think about Michael Shellenberger's perspective on the real causes of the Los Angeles fires? Do you agree that ideology plays a significant role? Or is it more about climate and environmental factors?
When the people that are when the nihilists are defending what happened, they're like, well, there was nothing else we could have done, or we did everything we could have. It's like, well, no, obviously you didn't. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It obviously was. There's only one right answer, which is that you didn't do enough.
Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your insights.